Jeffrey Bannick here. I appreciate you joining with me today. I'm going to go ahead and get today started. Let me get it started up in the group. Hope you're having an amazing day. Thanks everybody for being here. And we are live in the group, it looks like. Looking good, looking good. All right. So it's been very interesting here. Oh, I got to pull up the other screen. Where is it? There we go. These guys get tons of ad time here. All right, there we go. So last thing we said, they had decided to let everyone go, and that's where we left off at. He had, set in all the plagues. He'd killed the firstborn, and that's where we were left off at last. And the Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male, and the very first offspring of every womb whom among the Israelites belongs to me, whether human or animal." Then Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day, the day that you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast." Oh, that's right. They were leaving. They couldn't take any of their bread. They had unleavened bread. They were all just taking it in their troughs and leaving, and they were taking their animals and everything. Um, yeah, I still don't know what's up with the yeast, why that's the thing, but anyway. So they were getting ready to go worship. Today is the month of Avi. You are leaving when the Lord brings you in the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, Jeb- Jebusites, the lands he swore to their ancestors to give to you, a land flowing with milk and honey. You are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the seventh day behold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days. Nothing with yeast in it is to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within your borders. Wow, that's a lot of hate on the yeast. On that day, tell your son, I do this because of what the Lord did when I came out of Egypt. This observance will be with you like a sign on your hand, and a reminder on your forehead that this is the law of the Lord. It is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep this ordinance in the appointed time year after year. After the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you as he promised on an oath to you and your ancestors. You are going over to the Lord. You are going over to the Lord, the first offspring of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey. If you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn among your sons. So is that by say redeeming? Is he like say sacrifice? Like a lamb redeemed with the lamb every firstborn donkey. So every firstborn donkey has to have a lamb sacrifice. Is that what they're saying? I understand it. Interesting. In the days to come, when your son asks you, "What does this mean?" Ask him. I should have sort of grouped this stuff when I haven't. So, in the days to come, well, I sort of am asking the group, but I don't know if anybody ever watches this. But anyway, in the days to come, when your sons ask you, "What does this mean?" you say to him, "With the mighty hands of the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed the firstborn of both people and animals in Egypt. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb and redeem each of my firstborn sons, sorry. And it will be like a sign on your hand, the symbol on your forehead. The Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand." When the Pharaoh let his people go, God did not lean on them on the road through the Philistine country, though it was shorter. Did not lead them through the road through the Philistine country, though it is shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because of Joseph had made the Israelites swear on an oath. Wow, he took the bones with him? He had said, "God will surely come to your aid, and you must carry my bones with you from this place." Hmm. After leaving Succoth, they encamped in Etham, 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 on the edge of the desert. By the day, the Lord went ahead By the day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so they could travel by day or night. Neither the cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. Exodus 14. So we're going to 13 to 18 a day. Exodus 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back to the encampment near Phi Hiroth, between Migdol the sea, Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal Zephron. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army. The Egyptians will know that I am Lord. So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials uh, changed their minds about them and said, what have we done? We have let the Israelites go and lost their services. So he went to his chariot, made ready, and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they encamped by the sea near Phi Haroth, opposite Baal Zephon. Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? I would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses answered his people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring today. The Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and outstretch your hand. Move over the sea to divide the water so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so they will go in after them. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army through the chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. Then the angel of God, who has been traveling in front of the Israelites' army, withdrew and went behind them. A pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud, throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness on the sun, on one side and light on the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses outstretched his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided. And the Israelites went through the sea, but on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and clouded the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so they had difficulty driving, and the Egyptians said, "Let them get away with the Israel. Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, outstretch your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen. Moses outstretched his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen. The entire army of the Pharaoh that had followed the Egyptians uh, into the sea, not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses as his servant. Exodus 15, the song of Moses and Miriam. 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 When Moses and the Israelites sang the song, Lord, I will sing to the Lord, for he is high exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my Lord, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and army he has hauled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them. They sink in the depths like stone. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, in the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger and consumed them stubble. It consumed them like stubble. Sorry. By the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The surging waters stood like a wall. The deep waters congealed the heart of the sea. The enemy boasted, I will pursue. I will overtake them. I will divide the spoils. I will gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword, and my hand will destroy them. Which you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, Lord? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders? You outstretch your right hand, and the earth swallows your enemies. In your unfailing love, you, in your unfailing love, you will lead the people you redeem. In your strength, you will guide them to your holy dwelling. The nations will hear you tremble, will hear and tremble. Anguish will grip the people of Philistia. The chiefs of Edom will be terrified. The leaders of Moab will be seized with trembling, and with the people of Canaan will melt away. Terror and dread fall on them. By the power of your army, they will be as still as stone until your people pass by. Lord, sorry, uh, until the people you brought by. You'll bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place, Lord, the palace. Where's that place? Palace. Sorry, palace. The palace, Lord, you made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, Lord, your hands established. The Lord reigns forever and ever. When Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went in the sea, the Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a tim- timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he is hurled into the sea. The waters of Miriam and Ellen. Then, then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea and they went in the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. Then they came to Merha. They could not drink its water because it was bitter. This is why the place is called Merha. So the people was grumbling at Moses, saying, What are we to drink? Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it in the water, and the water came fit to drink. There the Lord issued a ruling and instructed for them and put them to the test. He said, If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the disease I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there near the water. Exodus 16. All right. Manna and quail. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which was between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they came out of Egypt in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we set there we set around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you brought us out in the desert to starve us and starve this entire assembly to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I'll rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This is the way. I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gathered on other days. As Moses, so on the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the others' days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought us out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it is the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? We are not grumbling. You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the entire Israelite community, "Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumblings." While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they took they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumblings of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, in the morning you will be filled with bread, then you will know that I am your Lord. That evening quail came and covered the camp. In the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. Then the dew was gone. Thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. Then the Israelites saw it. They said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take in Omar for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told, some gathered much, some little, and they measured it by the Omar. The one who gathered much did not have too much. The one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone gathered just as much as they needed. Then Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as they needed, and then the sun grew hot and melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. The leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is the day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it till the morning." So they saved it until morning, as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because today is Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will not be any." Nevertheless, some of the people who went on the seventh day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my instruction? Bear in mind that the Lord was giving you the Sabbath day, that it is why on the sixth day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone who is to stay where they are on the seventh day, no one is to go out." So the people rested on the seventh day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. This is white like coriander and tastes like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, as they are to see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt." So Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and then place it before the Lord to keep for the generations to come." As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law, so they might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until it came to the land that it was unsettled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of a ephah. Ephah. Okay, good to know. Good to know. All right. Water from the rock. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from the place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, where there's no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" For the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why do you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered, "Go in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take your staff, your hand, take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and they called the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites. Because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord and said, "The Lord is the Lord not among us." The Al, Amalekites defeated. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites. Ref, Rephidim. Moses and Joshua chose. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua fight the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses and Aaron and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning, but whenever he lowered his hand, the Amalekites were winning. Wow. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side, one on the other, so the hands remained steady until sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekites' army with a sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalekite from under the heaven." Moses built an altar and called it "The Lord is my banner." And he said, "Because hands are lifted against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Alchemites from generation to generation." Exodus 18, final chapter for today. Jethro visits Moses. Now, Jethro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard that everything God had done for Moses, for his people of Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her two sons. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land," and the other was Elz- Eleazar, for he said, "My father's God was my helper and saved me from the sword of the Pharaoh." Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and together with Moses' son and wife, came to him in the wilderness, where he is camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent a word to him, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and two sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down to kiss him. They greeted each other and went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way, and how the Lord had saved him. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hands of the Egyptians. So he said, "Praise be the Lord who rescued you from the lands of the Egyptians and of Pharaohs, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who treated Israel arrogantly." Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought offerings and other sacrifices to God. And Aaron came to all the elders of Israel to eat meat with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day Moses took his seat Next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. Then his father-in-law saw all Moses is doing for the people and said, "What are you doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Whenever have a dispute is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instruction. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. This work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them this decree, teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. Roll this up here. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for have them serve as judges for the people at all times. Have them bring every difficult case to you, the simple cases they can decide themselves, that they may make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all of Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country. Hmm. All right. Well, that was pretty quick for today. Yeah, so we're just jogging right along. So the people are now sort of establishing the nations of Moses and his people and the Israelites there, and now they're setting up laws and government, and yeah, they're just sort of chilling right now. They're escaped from the Pharaoh, and now they're setting up an establishment. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching today. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have an amazing day.